Hello and welcome to Three Questions with. Got my buddy Laurence Bleicher with us today. Laurence, good morning. Welcome to the
Good
show.
morning. How are you doing, Kevin? Glad to be here.
Just living the dream, my
Pre-Thanksgiving.
friend. Pre-Thanksgiving and stuff. So
Pre-Thanksgiving.
hopefully it's a good one. So let's talk about some of the trends. What's going on in your industry? How are people maybe using energy differently?
Yeah. One of the biggest thing we've noticed lately is that people are kind of moving away from the direct, all right, I mean, energy is a big concern, but all right, how do I get a more efficient motor? We should replace that old compressor with a newer, more efficient compressor. Those are good thoughts, but we're finding more and more that that's not really the central approach. It's not just getting better equipment or HVAC infrastructure or whatever it is. It's not even just lowering the bills. I mean, look, everybody always wants to save money. Cost cutting is never going to go away from industry, whether it's through material, whether it's expense aggregation, certainly through whether it's energy. So lowering the bills is always a piece of their equation. It's always a piece of ours. But that said, I guess my thesis here is operations. It's becoming more and more about operations. People are experiencing outages. People are experiencing alarms and faults with lots and lots of digital equipment, which does what it does, controlling, but they're sensitive to interruptions and blips. People are worried about increasing their production. And so I think more and more of the challenges that are facing the people we talk about in manufacturing and industry of all sorts is, how do I address those issues? How do I not have outages or interruptions? How do I not have inordinate maintenance, dust ups? And then when I do want to address those challenges, when we can address those challenges, then how do we do so in the most efficient manner? How do we do so using the right amount of energy, the right kind of energy, the energy, power, resource, whatever the case may be? So I guess the point being, the answer to the question is operations and the energy consumption are going much more hand in hand. It's an interesting evolution, I think.
So, Laurence, it seems like when I see articles about energy, it's about reducing the carbon. It's more about sustainability. How does your company fit into that goal?
That's a good question. Let me start with sort of an incremental scenario. If every business in New England, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, the world, the country could stand up and say, hey, we reduced our consumption by 7% this year. We're shooting for 5% next year. Those are relatively incremental amounts. I'm not talking about we got to cut our energy by 25 or 50%. If every company could do that, that would be considered a miracle, right? And within the next 3 months, 100 companies in New England stand up and say we're going to reduce 12% in the next 2 years. That would be considered a miracle, right? If we could pull it off. Those kind of incremental changes is exactly the kind of what we provide. We're going to look at the electric network. We're going to look at the use of steam and water systems. We're going to look at whatever the resource is, natural gas and boilers, whatever, those systems. But it almost always starts with electricity. And we're going to get those incremental improvements. Not only does that help the businesses, both the bottom line and the operations, like I was talking about before, but also if those, again, that's hypothetical scenario, those same 100 companies that reduce 12% in the next 2 years, all of a sudden you have a regional grid, which is less volatile and less strained, and there's less power. I mean, we're all familiar with blackouts and brownouts and issues that happen during the warm season or at peak moments. Well, those need to be managed. And if we could get by with producing and generating electricity or using more renewables to do so, then that's less carbon impact. And it's very, very direct. Producing less means less carbon impact. And so that's the kind of, and the last point I guess I'll make there is, once you've recovered some energy that you didn't have before, then, all right, then there's a whole bunch of fun questions. Well, what do we do with it? There's always things that are worthwhile to do with it, whether you want to sell it back to the grid if it's electricity, whether you want to repurpose it inside your facility, put it into batteries. I went to a really interesting presentation the other day about VPPs, virtual power plants. And it's a model that's evolving because there's so much distributed energy resources all over the grid now. And it's good in a way, but it's very difficult to manage in others. And, the business models haven't really caught up. So these virtual power plants are administrative ways to say anybody who wants to participate, an entity that wants to participate has power that they're willing to put into the grid. then of course there's lots of software and aggregation that has to take place, but to move that power around and account for it. But that again allows not generating more power than people are already generating. That's direct sustainability and carbon impact. So those are that's the kind of trajectory that we want to go on, and we want to be an enabler of those trends.
Which brings us to the third question. How do your systems implement with the existing management systems the company has done?
Yeah. Almost always stage zero for us. One of the first things we have to do is gather a lot of data. We bring in instrumentation, we gather a lot of data, we garner these huge data sets about what a facility's energy consumption looks like. But the very instrumentation we use to get all that data, and then that goes, of course, toward identifying solutions, engineering solutions. That very instrumentation is built into the solutions, so that more and more now, all this is part and parcel. We're gonna increase your power efficiency by X this. We're gonna get rid of these demand spikes. We're gonna have more reliability and get rid of those blips you were saying last summer. But the solution itself relies on that same data recording in real time all the time. And so it's just very natural with today's, whether it's Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or whatever, 5G, that information is there and it's being shared. It'll go to a cloud portal, a web-based, even applications on your phone, a simple app. People are standing there, whether it's in their kitchen or at work, and looking at their phone and monitoring their whole facility consumption patterns. It's very cool. We're all used to seeing that data presented, but to literally be able to pull it out of your pocket and say, "Oh, I got a problem on production line number 1. We had an outage." You get the idea. And so all the very essence of gathering the data is part of the solution, and that is Industry 4.0, right? It's hyperconnectivity of data and leveraging all that data, not only just to monitor your energy, but then of course that gets into procurement of energy. When can we buy and sell cheaper? How can we repurpose that energy? And with the data science and AI that's available today, as you integrate those tools, that data just becomes a flow of, that's the food, right? That data is part of your system, learning how to optimize whatever it is that you want to optimize. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it does make sense. Laurence, if people have questions, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? How can they learn more then?
Reach out, obviously phone and email, 603-275-7238 is the Energy LB number, and that gets to me directly. EnergyLB.com. You can contact us through the website as well. And I invite you to do so. I love these conversations.
All right, so I appreciate you taking a few minutes to call into the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Take care. Have a happy TG, everybody.
Thank you, too.